Hello and welcome to the Cute Baby Tutorials using Gimp. I may do a few things in this video, so if you want to go straight to one of the main sections, then the times they start are shown on your screen now. These videos are also available in higher definition on my website, along with any original files I'm allowed to give you in case you want to work on the same image as me. Just click on the link below. Okay, here we go. Okay, here's a lovely picture, a nice summer's day, two children playing with most of it grown up in the background, which is kind of a bit distracting. Also, I don't know if your friends do the same thing. Some of my friends like to point in photographs when they know they're being photographed, and they point at things that don't really need pointing at. So I've got a choice here. I can either try and remove that hand, or we can really go for broke and try and remove the entire adult. Let's do the second one. We're going to be using the clone tool to heal this picture of all adult interference. We'll do what we usually do. Create a folder, call it Fix. We're going to duplicate our picture to compare it with. When we're done, call it Base, click and drag that into our Fix folder. Okay, we're ready to go. Now, today we're going to be using layer masks, which we've covered in a previous video. We're also going to be using selections, which we've covered again in a previous video. It'll be a fairly involved thing to do, but, well, let's build on what we already know. Right, well, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to come to my color palette. I'm going to create a nice bright red foreground color. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to come to my base file here. I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to make this the foreground color. So now I've got a bright red image there. See just above, I've got this slider here called opacity. We've not used that before. This controls how transparent the layer is. I'm going to knock this down to around about 50%. It's half transparent. You can half see the image underneath. Now I'm going to take the base layer. I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to call it Boys. And I'm going to come down to this little up arrow here. I'm going to press it once. So now the boys layer is now sitting on top of this layer. Let's call it red. So why have I done all this? Well, I want a layer which has just the boys on there without any of the background. So that when I start doing my cloning tool operations, let's come back to my color palette and make that black again. We're going to need that to be black because we're going to come back to the boys layer and we're going to right click and add a layer mask. We've done this before. And we'll be using white full opacity. Add that. So now, make sure that layer mask is selected. Come to our paintbrush. And if we start painting using black, there you go. Now you can see why I put that red box there. If I make that red box invisible, well, I'm using the layer mask to hide bits of the top layer, but now if I use my paintbrush now, I can't see what I'm doing. But if I make my red layer visible again, bang, see? I've got a much clearer idea of where I'm going with this. That also explains why I made this red layer 50% opaque. If I make it completely opaque, I want a little bit of feedback on what I'm doing with that layer underneath. So I'll take that back down to about 50% there. All right. Now let's come back to the boys layer and make sure we've got the layer mask selected. Yep, selected. Well, as you can see, I painted over one of the boys. Not a problem. Get my magnifying glass, zoom in on him, come back to my paintbrush. I'm going to hit press X, which swaps the foreground and the background color around. So now I'm painting with white. Make the brush a bit smaller, and I want quite a hard brush with this. And I can start painting this area out again with a layer mask. Let's zoom in a little bit more. There. And click on the paintbrush again. Make it smaller. And I can start painting out that red area. Now, this is going to take a bit of time to do, so let's come out. I just want to show you a couple of very quick things. Rather than spending all my time painting like this, there's large parts of this layer which I need to mask out. So I can just come to my lasso tool, just start clicking around various different areas. I'm not clicking very tight, I'm just clicking quite loosely around the area. Bring it up to here, take it across, complete, and then I can come to Edit, Fill with, fill with background color, which is black. So that's my whole area sorted out there. I'm going to keep on doing this. I'll come back to you when all the background has been masked out successfully. Okay, there's my image, and I've masked out the background from the boys layer. I'll show you that now. There it is. That's just the boys layer there. Now you'll notice at the bottom I haven't masked out the various bits of grass or whatever. That's because I know when I start cloning, I'm not going to be affecting that area, so why make more work for yourself? Let's just bring things back. I can almost guarantee I'm going to get someone saying to me, well, why did you put that red layer there and rub out things above? Why didn't you use quick mask, or why didn't you? I know we haven't covered quick mask in previous tutorials, and I only want to use things that we've already covered from there. So this, it works, but we don't need that red layer anymore, so let's just click on it and get rid of it. So now I've got my base layer, the boys layer sitting on top, all masked out, and we're ready to go. Okay, first things first, make sure the base layer is selected. That's the layer we want to rub out stuff from. We want to leave the boys layer alone. Okay, let's come over to our clone tool. There we are. Let's check the size of it. Seems a good size. Okay, the actual brush itself, let's go for a medium hardness brush. Okay, let's make a start. So we hold Control down, pick a point, and we start eating away at the grown up. As you can see, I'm going to show you something. If I click on this point here, the control point here, and I start making the image, you'll notice there's a deep bit of the actual hedge there, and I'm getting that repeated again and again and again. I'm starting to get a repeating pattern. That is the enemy of the clone tool. So let's try and find. This one seems fairly. There's nothing there which is going to stand out when you use it again and again and again. You'll notice that every time I let go of my mouse, it goes back to the start and we start again. Well, another way you can do it, if you come down to Tool Options, click on Aligned, now you can see it moves around with me. So I'm going to click on another control point about there and move it around. That way, I don't get the same image repeated again and again and again and again and again and again and again. The other thing to look out for here is if you take a look at this sunshine here, it's coming down. Quite often when you're using the clone brush, you have to try and follow the line of whatever it is that's in the picture. I'm going to click on that point, I'm going to come down this line, and that way I can start to repeat that light area going down. Let's compare that with, say, if I hold down a control point here and start cutting into it. Yeah, you can see I'm losing that line of sunlight, which is not a bad thing because it's not really working if I take that light line all the way down. So I'll carry on with what I'm doing. I'm getting a lot of very small areas around here. I want to try and break that up. So Control, and just stick in a little bit of these larger areas of grass around here. And one thing I do want to do, let's get rid of that hand there, so I'm not spending all my time looking at that hand rather than other parts of the image. Okay, we're starting to get somewhere. I can take that out there. I can always leave a little bit of that sunlight there. People aren't going to look at this and say, oh, well, because of the cloning, yeah, there's a little bit of sunlight there and I don't really understand what's going on. If you want to be fussy about it, fine, let's come in right here. And watch what happens when I come over to here. Because the boys layer is sitting on top with the layer mask there, the boys don't get taken out of the picture. That's the reason you mask it all out. Okay, it's looking a little bit blotchy around here. The other thing as well, try not to set your brush too fuzzy, otherwise you end up with blotched out areas sometimes. I'm just going to take a little bit more in this detailed area down here, just for a bit of variance. Okay, there's a little bit of regular patterns going on there, but it's nothing too bad and people probably won't notice it. Now let's take a bit of this grass from this side and put it over to here. And as you can see, one grown-up disappearing, one little boy, oops, whose face I nearly copied there. And take this along to here. Come down here, still got a foot down here I need to get rid of, so I'll take some of this foreground. I'll take some of this shadow down here. And gradually take his foot out. Okay, there's still a little bit here, which bit of a fuzzy edge there, so I'm going to make this a bit of a harder brush, and I'll take a little bit from up here, repeat it down there. Now, because you see me do it, you can see there's a bit of a fuzzy edge there. You will be amazed that people will never notice there's a slight fuzzy edge there. All they'll be doing is looking at the two boys, which are in the picture now. And let's take a look at this. The original file, the new file, no grown-up. Quite an impressive tool, the clone tool. Now, if I had more time, then I would come back and I would sort out this edge here so that it gets a slightly harder edge and looks a little bit more natural. But you can see the general principle. The clone tool is a very powerful tool, and it's what people use to get rid of things they don't want in the picture. I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, maybe you consider clicking on one of the links below and check out my game called Disco Baby, which is on the iTunes Store or Android stores like Google Play. It has 3 different games in it, a memory game, a maths game for children, and a dance along with me game for toddlers to join in with. Thanks for your time.
Wow.